When that old fool finally signs, everything we've planned will be ours. Those words, spoken by my own wife, shot through the open window like poison. My name is Holger Albrecht. I'm 61 years old, and I've worked my entire life to build something lasting for my family. I'm not a man of many words. I'm a man who rolls up his sleeves, a man who gets up early, picks up his tools, and doesn't stop until the day is done. But on that damn day, my whole life collapsed. I'd just driven past my son-in-law's house and spontaneously decided to check in. But when I saw my wife's silver Audi at the garden gate, the car that should have been in our garage, I immediately sensed something was wrong. Quietly, on tiptoe, I approached the window. I didn't want to believe anything. But my gut wouldn't let me rest. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and write in the comments which city you're watching from. I heard Franziska's voice, my wife of 25 years, through the half-open window. She sounded smug, cold. Under the new laws in Hesse, I'm entitled to half of everything plus lifelong alimony, she said, lounging on my daughter's sofa as if she owned the place. And there he stood, Timo Brecht, my son-in-law, a lawyer with a slick voice and that arrogant smirk I'd never been able to stand. The structure alone is worth 12 million, he said, with the rental properties, the vacation home, the investments. We're talking nearly 20 million. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone. I hit record just as Timo continued. The best part is his gullibility. Holger has no idea we've been copying his documents for months. Bank statements, land registry entries, company valuations. He pointed to a folder on the coffee table. He's practically handed us the keys to his empire. I've played the loyal wife for 2 years, Franziska said, examining her freshly manicured nails. I've listened to his boring construction stories, played along while he agonized over payroll. The man actually believes I love him. A twig snapped under my foot. Suddenly, silence. They both froze. Their heads snapped toward the window. I pressed myself against the brick wall. My heart pounded, even though the April chill bit into my neck. Did you hear that? Franziska's voice was tense. Probably just the neighbor's cat, Timo said after a brief pause. If Holger finds out before we're ready, he won't do a thing, Timo added, with a contemptuous laugh. The man wouldn't recognize a conspiracy even if it were written in neon lights above his head. I stayed motionless for another 15 minutes. My phone recorded every word, every lie, every knife plunged into my heart. When I finally crept back to my car, nothing was the same. 25 years of marriage reduced to a tactical discussion between my wife and my son-in-law. The folder on the table was proof. Months of planning, calculation. While I'd been working 16-hour days to secure our future, they'd been meticulously preparing its destruction. I stared at my hands on the steering wheel, the same hands that had built my construction company from nothing, that had granted Franziska every wish, that had walked her down the aisle when her own father refused to attend our wedding. And now it was all a lie. The worst part? Just 30 minutes earlier, I'd truly loved her. The front door opened just as I reached for my car keys. Franziska stepped out with her designer bag and a smile that suddenly felt foreign. Timo followed, casually adjusting his tie. When they saw me sitting in the car, they caught their breath. Holger, Franziska's voice cracked. What are you doing here? I forced a smile, as if everything were normal. I just finished a site inspection nearby. I lied. Thought I'd drop by to see Brian. Timo immediately moved closer to Franziska, eyeing me with his calculating lawyer's gaze. She's not home, Franziska said quickly. I'm just helping Timo sort some documents for a client. Oh, really? I acted as if nothing was wrong. I thought you were at the office until 6 today. Didn't you mention something about the Henderson proposal? A flicker of panic crossed her face. I left early. Headache. Sorry to hear that. I turned to Timo. What kind of case? Asset division, he replied instantly, then bit his lip. So, a divorce case. Very complex financial situation. I nearly laughed out loud. How long have you been here, Holger? Franziska asked. Just arrived. Why? No reason, she answered. Her smile looked forced. You seem tense. Everything okay? The woman who'd spent months plotting my ruin was asking about my well-being. Long day, I said simply. Don't want to keep you. We're actually done, Timo said, placing his hand possessively on Franziska's back familiar, claiming, How long had this been going on? Good timing, I muttered, pulling out my phone. I glanced pointedly at the time, my eyes lingering on the screen a beat too long. I should head home anyway. Dinner won't cook itself. Franziska's laugh sounded strained. I'll be right behind you. Just need to lock up. No problem. I opened the car door but paused. Oh, Franziska, Dr. Bachuba's office called. It was about rescheduling your appointment. Something about your work hours. Her face went completely blank for a moment, like someone whose lie had just been exposed. Then she recovered. Must have been a misunderstanding. I'll sort it out later. No worries. These things happen. I got in the car. My heart pounded in my throat. See you later. As I reversed out of the driveway, I saw them in the rearview mirror, frozen in place. The moment I turned the corner, they leaned toward each other, whispering frantically. The dance of deception was complete. They suspected I'd overheard something. I knew they wanted to destroy me, and all of us pretended everything was perfectly normal. What Franziska didn't know, my phone had recorded 43 minutes of crystal-clear evidence. I merged onto the main road. For the first time in an hour, my hands were steady. The shock was fading, replaced by something colder, something focused. They thought they were playing chess against an amateur. They'd soon discover how wrong they were. She on stage with her psychology degree, Christmas mornings full of laughter and chaos, Sabine insisting on elaborate decorations that took weeks to set up, and vanished in a single day. When had gratitude turned into entitlement? When did, "Thank you for giving us this life," become, "We deserve so much more"? The recording on my phone held the answer. Sabine hasn't loved me in years, maybe decades. Every kiss, every anniversary, every whispered, "I love you" in the dark, all calculated. Manipulation designed to keep me working. Earning, amassing wealth she could one day claim for herself. 25 years of my life, reduced to a legal strategy session. I sat in the darkening living room, surrounded by memories of a marriage I'd believed was happy. But inside me, something cold and logical was spreading. Sabine thought she was playing the long game, positioning herself for maximum financial gain while preserving her innocence. What she didn't know, her husband possessed the same strategic mind that had built a construction empire from nothing. The game was about to take a radical turn. The silence in the living room was palpable as I forced myself to think like the businessman I was. When had Sabine's behavior shifted from genuine partnership to calculated scheming? The answer came with chilling clarity. 2020. That April, Burwald Construction won the contract for the Ammerfeld Community Centre, 50 million euros over 3 years, the biggest project in company history. I came home that evening expecting joy, maybe champagne, certainly support. Instead, Sabine sat at the kitchen table with a real estate magazine and a calculator. "Now we can finally afford the house on Lindenstrasse," she said without looking up. "The one with the round courtyard and pool. The Ehrenbergs are asking 4.2 million. No congratulations. No pride in my achievement. Just an immediate focus on what my success could get her. Sabine, I haven't even started the project yet. We still need designs, permits, subcontractor negotiations. But the money's guaranteed, right?" she interrupted, looking at me with those green, calculating eyes. "Once you sign, the city has to pay." The conversation lasted 2 hours. She'd planned every expense: the new house, golf club membership, luxury cars, European vacations. Not our expenses, hers. The pronouns should have tipped me off, but I was too wrapped up in logistics. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and write in the comments which city you're watching from. By 2021, her demands had escalated. Golf club membership became essential after the Bachubers moved to Hohenblick. Our cozy cabin in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern was suddenly embarrassing compared to the Schmitz's villa in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. Sabine began hinting about other women whose husbands really knew how to treat a woman. Physical intimacy faded. Separate bedrooms became necessary due to my snoring, though she'd never complained about it before. Our dinner conversations no longer revolved around us, but around what other families had. Ramona Kleinsman's husband bought her a Mercedes for their anniversary. Sabine sliced her salmon with surgical precision. "All I ask is that he appreciate everything I've sacrificed for this marriage." Sacrificed? She lived in luxury because I fought for us. After Franziska's wedding in September 2023, Her friendship with Timo suddenly intensified. Sabine started asking hypothetical questions about asset division and alimony. For a friend, she claimed. More phone calls. She'd go into the next room. Book club, or volunteer committee, she'd say. How many of those calls were actually conspiracy meetings? I replayed part of today's recording. Timo's voice. We've been documenting his assets for months. Sabine's laugh. I've played the loyal wife for 25 years. It all made sense now. Her sudden interest in my financial reports, her questions about company valuations, her insistence on joint accounts while keeping her own credit cards separate. She'd been spying while I built the empire she intended to steal. But Sabine made one critical mistake. She underestimated me, the man who'd built a thriving business from a single van and a worn-out toolbox. The same analytical mind that had navigated 35 years of construction contracts, union negotiations, and tenders was now focused on a different problem. They thought they were playing chess with an amateur. Sabine had spent months positioning her pieces, assuming I couldn't even see the board. She had no idea how well I understood strategy. I stood up and walked to my study. On the shelves, 35 years of business records, tax returns, contracts, land registry documents, partnership agreements. But I knew something she didn't. The real assets weren't in those files. I grabbed my phone and scrolled to a specific contact. Gregor Kurtz, my tax advisor, my friend, the only one who knew about the offshore accounts I'd set up years ago for tax optimization. Time for a call that would change everything. 3 days of intense research had turned my study into a war room. 2 laptops hummed on the mahogany desk I'd built myself 15 years ago. On the screens, bank statements, legal databases, land registry extracts. Yellow notepads covered every surface, labeled with columns like assets, weaknesses, timeline, leverage points. I'd shaved carefully, put on my best navy suit, and donned the reading glasses Sabine once said made me look distinguished. Strange how quickly grief crystallizes into strategy when you've got 35 years of business experience. Gregor was more helpful than I'd dared hope. 3 fully legal offshore accounts completely invisible to Sabine, even if she'd been clever. Her amateurish snooping had missed the real wealth. She'd catalogued the visible facade, while the crown jewels remained hidden right under her nose. But Sabine had been busy too. Her credit card statements told a story. $47,000 in unauthorized transfers over 8 months to a joint account I'd never opened. The recipient's name made my blood run cold. Timo Brecht. They'd positioned themselves as financial partners long before launching their divorce conspiracy. Luxury dinners at the Bergtal Golf Club, $300 spa treatments, designer clothing, all suspiciously timed with her book club evenings. Each expense was a puzzle piece in a woman preparing for a new life. The 8th lambskin handbag from the $500 collection, bought last Tuesday, especially cynical considering she'd complained about grocery prices that same morning. Their weaknesses were even more revealing. My contacts in the construction industry were generous with intel on Tannenfeld's most ambitious lawyer, the man trying to steal my fortune, drowning in debt, $180,000 in student loans, $8,500 monthly office rent chosen for image, not cents, plus a growing reputation for bending ethical boundaries when money ran low. Michael Saueressig of Saueressig Construction told me over coffee, Timo's sharp, no doubt, but he's got luxury tastes on a beer mat budget. He owes 3 of my subcontractors nearly $25,000 combined, always promises to pay next week, then disappears. The Bavarian Bar Association's website showed 2 dismissed ethics complaints last year, both for mishandling client funds. Dismissed, yes, but documented. In legal circles, even a dismissed complaint leaves a stain. I leaned back in my leather chair, reviewing the intel. 72 hours of targeted research. Sabine and Timo had catastrophically underestimated their opponent. They saw only a good-natured husband who worked hard and asked few questions. What they didn't see, the analytical mind behind Berwald Construction, a company now generating $12 million in annual revenue. The phone rang. Franziska's name lit up the display. "Hello, sweetheart," I said warmly. "Just like your dad. How was your day?" "Papa, I need to ask you something." Her tone was cautious, like a patient on the verge of collapse. "Is everything okay between you and Mom? There's this weird tension when you're both in the room." A pause. This is about more than estate planning, isn't it? How perceptive of her. 28 years in forensic accounting teaches you to read between the lines. Should I ask what kind of threat we're protecting against? The domestic kind? Claudia's silence spoke volumes. She'd already handled divorces for 3 of my foremen. She knew the terrain. I'll have everything ready by noon, she said firmly. The business assets will be fully shielded from personal claims. Whoever tries to go after your finances won't even know where the real money is. At 10 a.m., I sat across from Dieter Falkenberg, president of Hohenberg Volksbank, and my golf partner for 15 years. The mahogany-paneled conference room smelled of coffee and leather familiar territory. Here, I'd negotiated dozens of construction loans. Account security review, I said, sliding documents across the polished table. I need a full audit and temporary suspension of all shared access points until identity is verified. Dieter's eyebrows lifted slightly. That's comprehensive, Holger. Every joint account, every credit line, every automatic payment? Without exception. May I ask why? No, I said with a smile. How long until the blocks are active? As soon as you sign. All account holders will receive notice that in-person ID verification, with photo ID and a second document, is required. Dieter studied my face. This will severely restrict Sabine. That's the point. The blocks activated at 11:47 a.m., just as Sabine sat down for her weekly lunch with 3 other construction wives at the Bergtal Golf Club. My phone vibrated at 12:03 p.m., the first declined payment. I was reviewing subcontractor bids when Sabine's panicked call came at 12:50 p.m. Holger, something's wrong with our accounts. My card was declined at lunch, and the bank said the account is blocked. Do you know anything about this? Perfect innocence. No mention of the joint account with Timo's name. No admission of the missing $47,000. No confession that she'd moved money without my knowledge. Security block? That sounds serious. Did they say what triggered it? Something about identity verification and account access. It's embarrassing, Holger. I'm here with Petra, Karen, and Monica, and I can't even pay for my own lunch. Her desperation was real, not because her conspiracy was unraveling, but because her social status had just been publicly damaged. After 25 years of marriage, I knew Sabine's priorities. I'll call Dieter Falkenberg right away, I reassured her. We'll sort this out. But I didn't call. Instead, I drove to the medical center construction site, where my crew was pouring the foundation. The familiar noise of machines and voices felt almost peaceful after 3 days of financial warfare. My phone buzzed all afternoon. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and write in the comments which city you're watching from. Sabine, 1:47 p.m. I still can't access any accounts. This is ridiculous. Sabine, 2:23 p.m. Falkenberg's secretary says he's in meetings all day. What kind of bank president has no time for his best clients? Sabine, 3:15 p.m. Even our emergency credit line is frozen. How am I supposed to shop? Each message brought dark satisfaction. For 25 years, Sabine had taken financial security for granted while I worked 60-hour weeks to provide it. Now she was experiencing what it felt like when that security vanished. Her reaction was even more interesting. At 4:30 p.m., my private investigator Kemal Yilmaz called. Brecht tried 3 times this afternoon to access the joint account with your wife. When that failed, he tried withdrawing from a trust account, probably Brian's education fund. It's frozen, as you instructed. His behavior, angry calls to bank staff, threats of legal action, demands to speak with management. Classic arrogant lawyer realizing his leverage has evaporated. At 6 p.m., I sat in my home office, reviewing the day's financial battlefield. Every joint account blocked, every credit line frozen, every automatic payment requiring my approval. Sabine's access to 25 years of shared wealth had shrunk to the cash in her purse. The security measures were entirely legal, a husband protecting marital assets during estate review. Dieter Falkenberg could confirm all bank protocols were precisely followed. But Sabine and Timo would understand the message perfectly. The man they'd planned to financially ambush was no longer playing defense. At 6:47 p.m., my phone rang, Sabine's number. But I knew the voice this time wouldn't be manipulative. It would be desperate. Time to see how quickly conspirators betray each other when their plans start crumbling. The security guard at Brecht and Associates barely glanced at Sabine as she hurried through the lobby at 7:15 p.m. Her heels clicked frantically on the marble floor. I knew this because Kamal was sitting across the street at a cafe with a perfect view of the entrance. The panicked call Sabine made from our driveway. "Timo, we need to talk. Something's gone terribly wrong," was loud enough for our neighbor to overhear. Discretion no longer mattered to Sabine. On the 6th floor, Timo Brecht's corner office glowed like an emergency war room. Through the window, anyone with binoculars could see two figures hunched over a table covered in documents. Body language. Crisis. "He knows." Sabine's voice carried through the old ventilation system into the neighboring tax office, where one of Kamal's contacts worked. "Holger knows something. He's cutting everything off. I couldn't even buy gas." Timo's voice was cool, professional. "Procedurally speaking, the timing isn't random. 3 days ago you said he showed up unexpectedly at Franziska's, just as we were discussing strategy. He overheard something. How much? Enough to understand. We're not playing games anymore. Assume he recorded our conversation. Everything we said about assets, timeline, strategy potentially documented." The silence that followed said it all. Two conspirators realizing their victim was several moves ahead. "What do we do now?" Sabine's voice turned uncertain. "We accelerate everything. No slow transition. No careful positioning. Monday morning, I file an emergency divorce petition with immediate alimony demands. We'll claim Holger is committing financial abuse by denying you access to your shared assets." "Financial abuse?" "Exactly. We'll paint him as a controlling husband who uses money to manipulate and intimidate. The frozen accounts become evidence of his abuse, not his defense. More rustling of papers, illegal plans in full attack mode. I need proof from you. Emotional abuse, financial control, intimidation. Remember every time Holger made financial decisions without consulting you, questioned your spending, used money to influence your behavior. That'll be difficult." Sabine hesitated. "Holger was never controlling. If anything, too generous. Then we reframe generosity as manipulation. His provision becomes proof he created financial dependency to exert control. Every gift, every luxury, every convenience evidence of systemic isolation strategy. The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted to twist 25 years of love and care into proof of abuse. "And what about Franziska?" Sabine asked. "She won't automatically side with me. Her psychology training makes her skeptical." "Perfect," Timo said, satisfied. "Her hesitation will be seen as proof of how thoroughly Holger manipulated family dynamics. We'll use her psychological expertise against him. It becomes a professional assessment. You want to use our daughter as a witness against her own father? I want to save your financial future, Sabine. If Franziska expresses doubts, we'll present that as expert confirmation of Holger's manipulative patterns." The plan was malicious and sophisticated. Turn the daughter into an expert witness. Redefine love as control. Twist defense into guilt. "Monday morning," Timo continued, "I'll file emergency motions for a temporary injunction against asset transfers, immediate alimony of $15,000 per month, exclusive use of the marital home. By Wednesday, we'll have portrayed him as a violent husband requiring court supervision. And if he fights back, we escalate. Harassment charges for direct contact, stalking allegations for investigation, emotional abuse claims for questioning our accusations. Here's the beauty of domestic abuse law. Denial is treated as proof of guilt. The more he resists, the more controlling he appears." Sabine's laugh was icy. "Poor Holger. He has no idea what he's triggered. Years of playing the nice husband. Time to show him that nice guys finish last." They spent another hour aligning their stories, planning secure communication channels, and preparing for what Timo called total legal war. Every conversation, every action, every financial move would be framed as evidence of Holger's alleged abuse pattern. The conspiracy had evolved from simple asset theft to a full-blown character assassination. Goal: destroy Holger's finances, ruin his relationship with Franziska, and obliterate his reputation in the community he'd built over 3 decades. When Sabine left the building at 9:30 p.m., her phone buzzed with Timo's first strategic text. "Remember, you're no longer an angry wife. You're a frightened victim who's finally found the courage to escape her abuser." The war had officially begun. "I think something's psychologically wrong with him," Franziska said, setting down her coffee cup with the precise calm she always showed when switching into therapist mode. "What do you mean, Mama?" controlling behavior, paranoid thinking. He's restricted my access to our accounts, claiming it's for security reasons. Sabine let her voice trail off deliberately. She knew her daughter would fill the gaps with imagination. How long has this been going on? Months, maybe longer. I blamed it on work stress, but yesterday he completely locked me out of all joint accounts. I couldn't even buy lunch. Franziska leaned forward. Her psychological training kicked in even with family. Mama, financial control can be a form of domestic abuse. But it can also be a legitimate step during business transitions or legal uncertainties. What does Dad say about it? The question was too direct, too clinically neutral. Sabine had expected emotional support, not analysis. He claims it's a normal security measure. But Franziska, I've been married to him for 25 years. This isn't normal. It's punishment. Punishment? For what? Sabine hesitated. How much could she reveal without exposing her own conspiracy? I think he suspects I'm questioning our marriage. Maybe he's trying to intimidate me into staying. Mama. Franziska's voice carried the patient clarity of someone who'd treated manipulative patients for years. Are you telling me Dad is financially abusing you to prevent divorce? Or are you telling me you're considering divorce and Dad is securing assets? The distinction was sharp. Sabine switched tactics. I'm saying your father is showing disturbing behavior, and as a psychologist I thought you could assess what's wrong with him. As a psychologist, I'd say such changes usually have a concrete trigger. What happened 3 days ago that might have made him lock you out? Sabine's mind raced. Franziska was too well trained to be swayed by emotional manipulation. Every question exposed new cracks in Sabine's victim narrative. I don't know. That's what frightens me. But Franziska observed her mother's face with professional detachment, reading micro-expressions, listening to tone shifts, analyzing contradictions. Mama, do you want psychological counseling? Or do you want me to take sides in a marital conflict? The direct question shattered Sabine's strategy. Her daughter refused to be an emotional ally just to prop up a victim story. I want to understand what's happening to our family. Then you should have an honest conversation with Dad, instead of asking me to analyze him based on your interpretation. Sabine left the cafe, furious at Franziska's clinical coldness and the looming consequences. If even her own daughter wouldn't believe her, the victim role would collapse under professional scrutiny. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and write in the comments which city you're watching from. Meanwhile, less than 40 meters away at Bearwald Construction Headquarters, I received information that would change the entire battlefield. Michael Sauer-Essig's call came at 10:15 a.m., just as I reviewed weekend site reports. Holger, you should know, Timo Brecht is in trouble with the Bavarian Bar Association. They're investigating his handling of funds in the Kuhn case. What kind of trouble? 3 subcontractors filed complaints last month. Brecht collected the client's fee but never paid the tradespeople. Classic trust account violation. I set down my coffee. My mind started calculating. How serious is it? Serious enough that the bar is holding a hearing next week. Brecht's scrambling to scrape together $23,000 to pay the trades before the investigation concludes. $23,000, exactly the amount Timo owed, according to my research. Michael, would those subcontractors be willing to speak about their experiences with Brecht if someone from the construction industry called? Absolutely. They're furious. He's been stringing them along for 6 months, blaming clients or court delays. These are small businesses, they can't afford those losses. Over the next 3 hours, I made strategic calls. Murat Demir of Demir Electrical waiting 8 months for $7,400. Cem Idil of Idil Plumbing $9,200 outstanding since October. Kaja of Kaja Roofing $6,500 since November. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Polite inquiries from Bearwald Construction, considering hiring Brecht for legal advice. Each subcontractor seized the chance to warn about his payment delays and unethical behavior. By 1 p.m., I had enough evidence that Brecht had systematically misused trust accounts, violated bar rules, and deceived tradespeople. At 2:30 p.m., I called the Bar Association's ethics hotline. I'd like to file a formal complaint for professional misconduct. Timo Brecht has systematically misused client funds and made false statements to construction firms. I filled out the complaint form with detailed documentation, names, amounts, timelines, evidence. 3 more firms agreed to testify. At 4 p.m., Brecht's office received the bar's call. Accelerated investigation, mandatory hearing. His professional reputation, the foundation of his entire conspiracy against me, was now officially under scrutiny. At 4:47 p.m., my phone vibrated. Message from Kamal Yilmaz. Brecht just left his office. 3 file boxes under his arm. Getting in his car. Should I follow? No need. I typed back. I know exactly where he's going. Timo would drive straight to Sabine. His panic now overrode all caution. What had begun as a cold, calculated conspiracy had turned into a desperate fight for survival. Let them panic. Let them make mistakes. The real war has only just begun. I understand, Franziska said quietly. Good, because there's something else I need to do. With the determined stride of a woman who'd rediscovered her moral clarity in a sea of lies, she left my office. Minutes later, she'd enter her own home to confront the man who'd not only betrayed me, but also the professional integrity she'd worked years to build. I sat alone in my office, surrounded by evidence of 35 years of honest work. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something I'd thought impossible. Hope. Hope that truth might still matter. At 7:30 p.m., a key turned in the lock. Timo looked up, surprised. He hadn't expected Franziska so early. He was sprawled on our living room sofa, legal documents everywhere, a half-empty whiskey bottle on the coffee table. We need to talk, I said, placing my handbag down deliberately slowly. Rough day, he muttered, not even looking up from the file he pretended to read. The Barrett testimony got postponed again. I know about the conspiracy, Timo. His head snapped up. The lawyer's mask slipped, revealing raw desperation. What conspiracy? The one where you and my mother planned to financially ruin my father and used my psychological credentials to fabricate abuse claims. I stood my ground. I wouldn't give up the advantage. I've heard the recording, every single word. He set down his whiskey glass, noticeably calm. Franziska, I think you're misunderstanding something. Played the devoted wife for 25 years. Does that sound familiar? His face drained of color. Timo Brecht, the man who argued cases before the higher regional court, looked like his entire life was collapsing. How much did you hear? Everything. The asset division strategy, timeline, your fee calculations, Mom's performance reviews. I sat opposite him, upright, distant. Was our marriage part of this plan from the beginning? Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and write in the comments which city you're watching from. 3 days later, Sabine felt how quickly social exile strikes, before legal consequences even begin. At the Bergtal Golf Club's Saturday brunch, the dining room was loud and lively as always. But as she approached the tables, conversations fell silent. Petra Mann, her bridge partner for 5 years, suddenly became fascinated by her eggs Benedict. Karin Seifer abruptly ended an urgent phone call the moment Sabine said hello. When she reached her usual table, it was clear. The conspiracy had gone public. Sabine, darling, Monica Altman called with exaggerated cheer. We missed you at the planning committee yesterday. What committee? I didn't get an invitation. Oh, didn't you get the message? We had to make some structural changes. You understand, of course. Sabine recognized the pattern. Unreturned calls, withdrawn invitations, doors closing quietly, but permanently. Meanwhile, my own campaign was far more successful. Years of honest work had earned me a reputation no trick could destroy. Over lunch with Dieter Falkenberg, I casually dropped a few facts. I'm worried. There were family plans involving our assets. I had to take protective measures. Dieter's reaction was exactly what I'd hoped for. Professional understanding and genuine sympathy for a betrayed friend. That evening, at the Hohenberg Chamber of Commerce meeting, Michael Saueressig casually asked why Sabine missed the charity event. Sometimes you realize too late who you're really married to, I said calmly. 2 decades of marriage, and it turns out she'd planned it all. I'm glad I know now. By Sunday evening, Sabine's social exile was complete. The Bergtal Golf Club's admissions committee announced a routine review of her membership. The Hörnblick Charity Committee confirmed her resignation, which she'd never submitted. Her professional downfall matched her social collapse. 3 major clients terminated contracts, citing doubts about integrity. Even the Werner Industriebedarf AG contract, worth over $200,000 annually, was formally ended. We've lost confidence in your firm's professional judgment. Sabine's panicked call to Timo Sunday night carried through the thin walls of her rented apartment. Everyone knows, Timo. Everyone. I can't show my face here anymore. We'll file emergency motions Monday morning. We'll force Holger onto the defensive. Before what? Before you lose your law license. Before I have to move back to my sisters in Brandenburg. Their mutual blame game lasted until midnight. Two conspirators learning that shared guilt doesn't lead to shared solutions. Monday morning, Sabine sat in the office of Bettina Vogter, divorce lawyer, known for aggressive tactics and high fees. The glass conference room offered a direct view of the courthouse where Sabine hoped to destroy me. But Bettina's expression held little hope. Mrs. Graf, I've reviewed your files, she began clinically. Your husband's financial protections appear legally sound. In a marital crisis, account holders have the right to restrict access. But that's financial abuse. Sabine's victim act began to crumble. He controls every euro I can access money he earned, according to 25 years of tax records, Bettina countered. Your own contribution to household income was minimal. You haven't been employed since 1989. Sabine's cheeks flushed. Being a housewife had once meant luxury and security. Now it was proof of dependency. What about emotional abuse? Intimidation? Can you cite specific incidents? Sabine had spent nights twisting Holger's consideration and generosity into an abuse narrative. He's always been controlling with money. Examples of threats? Physical intimidation? Social isolation? No, Mrs. Vogt. In domestic violence cases, we need evidence. Has your husband ever threatened you, locked you in, monitored your communications? Each question drilled new holes in Sabine's fabricated story. Holger had never yelled at her, never restricted her freedom, never questioned who she associated with. 10 blocks away at the same time, Timo received a call from the Bavarian Bar Association's Ethics Commission, and it was brutal. Mr. Brecht, we've received new complaints about your handling of client funds, specifically suspected misuse. His grip tightened on the receiver. These allegations are baseless. My accounting has always been correct. Demir Electrical has invoices unpaid for 8 months, though the client paid you 6 months ago. Where is that money? The answer was clear. In Timo's personal account. He'd diverted payments to cover rent and student loans. What he'd considered smart cash flow management was, in truth, embezzlement. This could be administrative delays. A formal hearing is scheduled for Thursday morning. Bring complete financial records for all client accounts from the past 18 months. By Wednesday night, Sabine and Timo had reached the point where desperation breeds dangerous decisions. Their late-night emergency meeting in Timo's nearly empty office resembled two generals preparing for a final battle without ammunition. We have to file a domestic violence report, Sabine said with forced confidence. It's the only way to force him onto the defensive. Sabine, false domestic violence allegations are a criminal offense, especially with the evidence Holger likely holds. What evidence? I never said anything incriminating. No cameras, no witnesses. She paused, then remembered the recording that started it all. That recording only proves we planned financial strategy, not violence. Then we reframe it, she insisted. Your legal expertise, my victim testimony. We'll turn it into a story of long-term emotional manipulation and financial control. Timo stared at her, stunned. 6 months ago, she'd been a bored housewife seeking excitement. Now she was proposing perjury before the federal court. If this backfires, we'll both face serious fraud charges. If we don't try, she shot back coldly. I'm ruined, and you'll lose your license anyway. Only calculation remained in her voice. She'd lost everything except the ability to drag others down with her. At least we'll go down fighting. Thursday morning's hearing for the temporary injunction would decide whether their last desperate act succeeded, or whether they'd merely handed Holger more evidence for criminal charges. What they didn't know, their opponent had spent the entire week meticulously documenting every message, every meeting, every lie. Holger Albrecht was no longer just defending himself. He was preparing to prosecute. On May 1st, Tannenfeld District Court felt different, as if Holger's 35-year reputation had condensed into a tangible force he now carried into court. Judge Ursula Werner presided with the cool efficiency of someone who'd seen every form of family deception. Sabine sat at the plaintiff's table beside Bettina Vogt, her clothes plain, makeup subtle, posture, nervous, understandable given the stakes. "Mrs. Graff," Judge Werner began, her voice probing, "you accuse your husband of financial abuse and intimidation. Can you cite specific incidents that justify your fear?" Sabine's voice trembled, perfectly staged vulnerability. "Your Honor, for months, my husband has controlled our accounts, monitored my spending, threatened consequences if I leave him." "What kind of threats?" "Financial, that I'd be left with nothing, that he'd use his business connections to ruin my reputation." She paused meaningfully. "Last week, he even denied me access to money for basic necessities. I watched my wife perform a victim role built on 25 years of marriage to a caring man. Yet she seemed increasingly convinced of her own lie." Judge Werner turned to my lawyer, Ralph Schaefer. "Does the defense wish to respond?" Ralph stood calm, assured. 30 years of legal experience, never once promoting false testimony. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Graff's statements are not only false, but part of an intentional conspiracy to defraud my client of marital assets." "That's a serious allegation, Mr. Schaefer. We possess an audio recording in which Mrs. Graff and her co-conspirator, Timo Brecht, planned exactly this scheme 6 weeks ago." Sabine's face went pale. Bettina Vogt whispered frantically in her ear. "But damage control was useless when the entire case was built on lies." "I'd like to submit Exhibit A," Ralph said, connecting his phone to the courtroom speaker. Sabine's voice filled the room. "When that old fool finally signs, everything we've planned will be ours." For minutes, Judge Werner listened to the entire conspiracy. Sabine mocking our marriage, Timo outlining legal exploitation strategies, their deliberate manipulation of Franziska's psychology training. "He actually believes I love him," Sabine's recorded voice explained with cruel matter-of-factness. I watched her entire victim performance collapse. The feigned fear turned to farce as she faced her own recorded contempt. "Mrs. Graff," Judge Werner asked quietly but firmly, "do you have a response?" Sabine opened her mouth, but no words came out. Bettina Vogt paled. "Your Honor, I move to withdraw from this case. I wasn't informed of these circumstances when I accepted the mandate." "Motion granted," the judge replied curtly. Then she fixed Sabine with the look she reserved for those who lie under oath. "Mrs. Graff, I emphatically deny your application for a temporary injunction. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the public prosecutor for investigation of possible perjury." The gavel fell with finality that echoed through the room. 2 weeks later, Sabine's miscalculation appeared in black and white in the divorce settlement. Her provable deceit disqualified her from any alimony claim, and the 1979 prenuptial agreement signed in youthful euphoria limited her share of assets to a minimum. Timo's law license was permanently revoked after the Bar Association traced $127,000 in missing client funds. Last I heard, he'd moved to Saxony-Anhalt and works as a legal assistant. Franziska filed for divorce the day after the hearing, citing irreconcilable differences. She's now building her own psychology practice, specializing in familial manipulation patterns. 6 months later, Sabine stands at the checkout of the mall where she once bought luxury goods with my money. The irony isn't lost on either of us. I've rebuilt Burwald Construction's reputation stronger than ever. Community support during this family crisis turned into new contracts and deeper business relationships. The house feels different now, quiet, but honest. No more staged conversations, no more calculated affection. Just the sound of rain on windows I installed myself, in a home that's finally, truly, my own. Sabine was right about one thing. I really did believe she loved me. But now I know. Love isn't recognized in words, but in truthfulness. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel, leave a comment with your city, and share this video with someone who's experienced a difficult separation or family drama.